Don't you ever question me again. When I tell you a show is going to end the way it's going to end, listen to me because I'm going to be right.
You were right this time. However, comma,
Hmm.
I will always question you because you have always said, don't believe everything I tell you. You
I mean,
can't have it.
I can't disagree with that.
You cannot have it both ways. You cannot tell me to listen to you blindly because you have told me on several occasions I will lie to you. And you have told me to, especially when we've been at work, trust but verify.
Sir, this ain't a news video.
That is true. Because we're more
This
we're
is a
more entertaining.
consumerist. That's right.
We're,
This is a consumerist video.
we're more entertaining. That's
We
Michael.
just
I'm Leroy.
spout
Did it
whatever we
just get
want.
dark again?
Yeah, man, your video is. You know what I realized? I think because whenever you move your hand, it changes. It's weird, man.
Oh,
I don't know.
so I have to sit like this.
The entire yeah, pretty much. Pretty much that's what you got to do.
So I'm gonna move the camera. So I
Uh-huh.
just saw it get dark. So I'm gonna sit just like this. I'm trying not to be too animated. I see that
Great.
now.
Yeah, okay. We'll
So
see
that
how
just
that goes over the course of an hour. Uh-huh.
yeah. So basically, what I need to do is buy a new webcam. So I bought. So I'm in the like I've been buying things in preparation. So that's basically what I need to do.
Hmm.
So that's Michael. I'm Leroy, and you see didn't even move, and it like just went out.
Yeah.
um, and we're here to talk about Last of Us
Season 1, I guess.
season one. The
Yeah.
basically, so we did a so to catch everybody up, we did a mid-season review up to episode 5.
Hmm.
Um, I think we did it right before. Did we do it before the Super Bowl?
Pretty close to it, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think we put
So
it maybe that Friday or Saturday or something.
yeah, and so this we had 4 more episodes. We just I think episode 5 we got to Kansas City, and
Hmm.
now we made it to Wyoming and
Colorado, right?
yep.
Yeah.
So
Um,
let's what so for not playing the game, just watching people play the game,
mhm.
does this match your opinion of what you watched?
Uh, yeah, we'll do non-spoilers for at the top like we always do. I feel like this followed the game pretty well. They did a
Mhm.
couple of detours, and kind of changed some things and maybe gave other characters or gave different characters new beats and more motivations and stuff to kind of flesh out their backstory. But for the
Mhm.
most part, you got from point A to B to C, and it followed the big parts of the game. I think. Um, so, and for that, I was happy. As somebody who doesn't really like horror stuff, because I don't like that feeling of dread, or
Mhm.
just that even that feeling of suspense a lot and a lot of stuff like that. Kind of the main reason why I didn't finish or play the games. Um, it was fun to watch other people play, and I was like, oh, this is this beat. Oh, this is, and it was interesting for me to watch those last 4 episodes because again, it's not exactly one for one for the game, but when they follow stuff in the game, it's kind of like, oh, this kind of helps me prepare for what's going to come. So I'm like, oh, I know this beat is about to happen. This shoe is about.
Mhm.
We can see how the characters interact with one another. So yeah, I was happy.
How do you think you would have felt if you had known, no, like knowing who you are, like you're a fully fledged adult. You know who you are. You know what you like. You know what you don't like. How do you think you would have felt watching this show and not knowing those beats?
That's
Because
tough, man. It's tough to like go back and be like, oh, I think I would have done this. I don't know that I in my mind it probably would have hit harder the ending of the show, just because it would have been I would have been more shocked with what happened. But because I already knew beforehand, I was like, okay, well, this is coming, this is coming, um, and I do think they hit a little differently the way the game hits compared to the show, and I haven't been able to reconcile if that's because I knew it was already going to happen or because it was set up differently in the TV show than the game.
so the reason why I asked that is because so episode 5 was where we cut off and then we were done with the Sam and Henry part. And we had a conversation with friend of the show, Vanessa, where she felt like the Bill episode, Bill and Frank, hit her harder than Sam and Henry. And
Hmm.
I was like, it hit harder right now because we never got to experience the Sam and Frank stuff in the game. sorry, Bill and Frank in the
Bill
game.
and Frank in the game.
Sam and Henry hit harder for me in the game because I just didn't see that coming. So
Mhm.
in the show, when it happened, it hit hard, but it didn't hit as hard because I was prepared for it. But that Bill and Frank episode, no one saw coming because it was never in the game.
Mhm.
So it was one of those things where it really took me it caught me so off guard. Um, so that's why I was like, I wonder for some people who never played the game. Because there's some people on my Facebook page that I was like, hey, they were like, how would they go just leave it like this? What? And I was like, this played out just like the game.
Mhm.
Like, and if you thought this was hard, imagine playing it. Like, imagine going through this and making these decisions. And I really appreciate that it was more of a linear campaign in the game. And I like the fact that it was very linear in the actual storytelling as a TV show.
Mhm. And it's interesting because of the decisions that happen with the characters in the final part of the game or the TV show versus the game. It's interesting because with the game, you don't have a choice but to do them. Like
Mhm.
you have to follow if you want to complete the game, you have to actually make them happen. Oh, my TV's off, whatever. You have to actually make them happen. But with the TV show, it's more of it's definitely a passive medium. So you're kind of just there for the ride to be a
Yeah,
spectator.
yeah. So we have to do it. Is The Last of Us the greatest video game adaptation?
Not for me.
Really?
Nah.
You
I
better
don't
not
know.
say,
And it's I bet
man.
not
If
say what.
you better not say Resident Evil, the movies.
Oh no. I would never say that like that. I mean, I would say that just to spite you or something. No.
I was like, you better not say nothing inflammatory like that.
It's interesting because I guess it all depends on what you're looking for. Like if you mean an adaptation in terms of like recreating what the game did, then maybe. I mean,
Yes.
it hits all the
Yeah.
major beats.
Okay.
So maybe I'll give it that. I don't. Maybe I'll give it that for sure, but I don't think it's my favorite
I didn't say
adaptation.
favorite. I didn't say favorite. I guess like you just so the criteria that you just used is what I'm looking for. Did this accurately recreate the story that was told in the game that millions have played on screen for the people who played the game or didn't play the game?
I
Did
would
they
say
get the same story?
if by those criteria, I would say it's probably the most faithful recreation.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Sure, I agree with that.
Yeah. Not your
Um,
favorite because this is a very as much as I like it, this is a very dour show. Um,
I mean, the game is dour.
it is, but think about it like this: a lot of people don't realize that because even though this game might have sold 10 million copies, it's one of the most lauded video games. That's still a very small subsection of the population of the
The
American
global
population.
population, sure.
Yeah, so like I don't know how well that game sold around the world or how well this show did around the world, but I know for us here in North America, this was one of the most lauded games of all time.
Hmm.
It's been recreated, remastered several times, and so I think from that aspect, our population is very small who know about the game versus the people. I mean, this is one of the biggest platforms, HBO, and then HBO Max. This, there are people who I know watch this who had no idea this was a video game.
Mm.
So, and from that standpoint, I think this is one of the
I'd be curious
best.
to talk to somebody from that perspective who didn't know it was a video game.
Yeah, I mean, I probably will. I'm gonna try to reach out to a couple people because, like, I know two of the women that I know that I'm friends with did not realize until after they started watching it that this was a video game.
Hmm.
Like they didn't like, oh, this was a video game, you know. And I know a bunch of people who played the beginning of it and never finished it, so they watched the show.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, for me, this is my favorite adaptation, the most faithful, and it really sets the bar kind of high for everything else that comes after it.
For me, my favorite video game adaptation is
Detective
probably
Pichiku.
no, the Arcane series on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
And to be fair, as somebody who's never played League of Legends, I don't know how well it follows the character motivations of people, but that show was just great. I really
Okay.
enjoyed Arcane a lot. So for me, I just liked it because it was so different. I was really into the animation and the overall storytelling and everything about it.
Okay.
So that's me. Detective Pikachu was great too. Where's Detective Pikachu 2, by the way? Where that at?
Ryan Reynolds is busy. He just sold Mint Mobile, so it's gonna be a while.
I mean, if anything, he don't have to worry about the company no more. So go ahead and record them that track.
You got to look at what's on Ryan Reynolds' plate right now. He just sold Mint Mobile. He's got Deadpool 3 coming up. He still has Welcome to Wrexham, and
are they doing a season 2 of that?
I want to say yeah.
I hope so. I like the first season.
He still owns the team, so even if they don't do a season 2, you still got to run the team.
Sure, sure.
So him and Max still got to run it. I'm trying to. There's something else that he's got in the works that Red Notice. Red Notice 2.
Oh, Red Notice 2.
They are making a Red Notice 2. That is the goal.
Good point.
So the brother is busy, and he's a dad. Oh, and don't forget, he has a liquor. Is it whiskey?
Everybody's got it. He's got a gin.
Gin.
Aviation gin, right? Is aviation is gin?
It's aviation because those commercials are freaking hilarious. If you haven't seen them, go follow Ryan Reynolds on Twitter and YouTube and go watch those commercials. Have you seen the one that he did with Nick Cannon?
Aviation gin. No.
Son, go those commercials. That's a treat for y'all. Go watch Ryan Reynolds do commercials with his gin. Hilarious. So yeah, I really am excited about it. Here's my question: how authentic do you think this series was about the apocalypse?
I have no clue.
Hold on. Based on what we've seen, so this was a question that Renee, one of our commenters, put on our page, and
Renee, friend of the show, I love you. I don't know how to answer that question.
Hold on, let me read what he said because I probably didn't frame it correctly. So let me go to it. But basically, what he was asking was, did the scene remember there was a child in the first part of the show who they found was bitten, and they
gone.
Yes. Did they react too quickly, given what they know that Ellie was? So basically, finding out Ellie was immune, and now we've watched the show. Do you think they reacted too quickly to that child having the virus, being bit? Hold on, here it is. Renee, I would like you guys to do a discussion about whether or not you think Ellie was really the only one with immunity. I think the girl in the episode 1 may have been immune, and the fear of contagion was so great that elimination was done too soon. How would you handle a quarantine? And without going, the quarantine, that's going to be kind of hard because we couldn't get people just to wear masks for the pandemic. So I think that's going to be hard to basically, but they raise a good point. Ellie was immune. There was no nuance with Ellie being immune. Fedra probably would have shot her dead. So how many people actually could have been immune? We have no idea because the first thing they did was to kill people on sight. Like we literally saw throughout the whole show, bombings. We saw in that one episode with the woman from Jakarta, where she was like, yeah, you not go save. She was like, let me go home. Cause she was like, it's already out of control. And to me, that's a very good point, especially knowing how we know it ended, where Joel was saying, hey, they don't need you anymore. They found a bunch of people with immunity. There's got to be people who have been born with an immunity.
So are we doing spoilers for 6, 7, and 8, 9? I feel like we are based on what you just said. I mean, we can.
My bad.
Let me know where we're going.
I wasn't trying to do a spoiler. I was trying to basically talk about my bad. My bad, y'all. I'm sorry. So if you hadn't seen the final,
yeah,
Joel says something.
He
says something to somebody. Somebody says something else.
Yeah.
And like, comment, and subscribe.
There we go. Hey, I'll follow your lead, man. You tell me where you want to go.
So let's rank it, and then we'll
Okay.
get to
We'll
spoilers.
get to
So
spoilers. All right, cool.
let's rank it. What do you give it?
I mean, I give it a 5 out of 5. It was thoroughly enjoyable.
Okay.
And whether or not you want to call the people infected or zombies or whatever, I it's not exactly like Walking Dead, but I think people are going to compare it to Walking Dead because those are two properties with others are infected or zombies or whatever. So I think
Hmm.
people are going to make that comparison. I found this to be more enjoyable than Walking Dead, but at the same time, it was only one season. It was
Hmm.
9 episodes. Walking Dead, when it first started, I enjoyed Walking Dead, but now season 10 and 11, I'm kind of whatever. So who
Are you
knows?
still watching it?
No, no,
Oh,
I feel like that might be part of my point. I
yeah.
watched up to maybe season 5, maybe 4 or 5, and I kind of just fell off. Um, if Last of Us was 13 seasons or whatever, who knows if I would still enjoy it. But the fact that it was contained like this, I felt like they did a great story. And again, shouts out to Naughty Dog, Neil Druckmann, all those people who helped create the original game. It translated very well on screen. 5 out of 5. I enjoyed it, and I don't really think, even though I'm giving it 5 out of 5, I don't know that anything's perfect, but it was just those 9 episodes were really well done.
Okay.
So 5 out of 5 joke puns.
Joke puns.
Yeah.
I give it a 5 out of 5. Joel throwing a brick at somebody.
Okay.
Because you can do that in the game. I'm a little upset that Joel never threw a brick at anybody in this game.
Hmm.
Because that was one of the movements. I didn't see Joel grab any things like broken scissors and have to make shivs. I really wanted to see him shiv somebody. There was a lot of things that were from the game that we saw in the show. Those were two that I was really looking forward to.
Okay.
We did get to see Ellie and Joel do a ladder puzzle in the
Yeah.
last episode. So I give this a 5 out of 5. This was a very good first season. Like, to me, this is one of those shows where, let's say you don't watch the rest of it, the story's over. If you
Yeah.
just watch the first season, perfect. I think it is, to me, one of the most faithful recreations of what you would play as a video game. So hats off to Naughty Dog and to HBO. I know we have really ridiculed Warner Brothers Media and HBO Max and HBO for their terrible decision making, but I think they hit this one out of the park.
And to be fair, this was probably well in the works before Zaslav came on board.
So
So I don't know if I
I'm,
would give the credit to Zaslav.
I'm not giving him credit. I'm giving
Okay.
credit to the whole company,
Okay.
because the whole company, even though it may be run by Zaslav, has done a piss poor job of running it, in my opinion. Now,
Sure.
I've never ran a multinational corporation, so I don't know if I'd be any better at it.
Hmm.
But spoiler time. Um, Friend of the show, David Zaslav. If you would like some tips, check out our channel.
Yeah.
We're
Please do.
trying. Nerdy by Nature Productions. We would be happy for a small fee of a couple of $1 million. We will be happy to help you run Warner Media.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I could definitely do that.
I could definitely fit you into my schedule.
All right. So spoiler talk. Where you want to go?
Do you feel, after everything we went through with the pandemic, this was accurate?
I mean, it's tough to say, and maybe because I'm more of a, I'm probably more. I feel like of the two of us, I'm probably more of an optimist, and you're more of a realist. I think that's fair.
Dude, I have weapons in every room of this house. Yes, you're definitely more of an optimist.
Well, there we go.
There's a hatchet at the counter just in case people break in while I'm in there making breakfast for the boys. So I can just be like, ha ha, you thought you had me? Nah.
I want to say no, but it does seem like people, for the most part,
Or terrible?
people, yeah, but also people are scared, and when people are scared,
Yeah.
and I know I'm not the first person to think of this, but it goes back to the fear of the unknown, and like part of like the core tenets of going to your boys, the X-Men, right? People fear what they don't know, so they label them others, and you get those isms or whatever, racism, any type of isms, right? And
Cannibalism, extremism.
yeah, you can feel when you're isolated and alone, it's definitely easier to group with like-minded people and fear others. But at the same time, I want to say there's hope, just because as much as the pandemic has shown us that people can suck, there were times during the pandemic where people were cool.
Yeah.
That was probably more towards the beginning of it, and not as people got tired of, like you said, wearing masks or getting vaccinated or whatever. But beyond all that, there were times, and I remember us doing stories in Colombia of people coming together and pitching in and helping and doing stuff. I feel like, and I don't know if this was a pandemic commercial or not, but now help me out with this. I can't remember. NFL, was that ever not a thing during the pandemic?
No, they played the games, but they did it with a very truncated type of way. So they didn't let fans in the stadium. The NBA stopped. So remember, the NFL doesn't start until because they spring training. So they
because the Super Bowl happened.
Yes,
and people were like, "This thing could be a thing, but it's not here yet." And then like a week later, like, "Oh, everybody at the Super Bowl was affected."
Remember, things didn't shut down until March.
Yeah.
Because remember, the Super Bowl's at the first week of February, and then I think March 20th. Or was it March? Right. It's whatever March.
Sometime in March.
Something. I think maybe this week in March was basically March was when everything shut down, because that's when they shut down the NBA. They like stopped games, and I remember because it was the Mavericks. And I remember it was Rudy Gobert who was like touching microphones and all that other stuff.
Looking like an idiot.
Yeah. Yes. And I waffle on this a little bit only because so Renee had posed the question, and I again, I want to bring it up, and I know I apologize if you're still watching and I spoiled something.
Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. Let me finish my thought. So the thing I brought that up with the NFL because so the Super Bowl happened, pandemic happened, and then I feel like the next year during the Super Bowl, those commercials hit harder than normal because they talked about people coming together.
Yeah.
And do you remember like there was one about a commercial with the ballerina or some type of dancer or something?
No.
Chat, let me know. I don't know. It was a really touching commercial that just really hit hard during the Super Bowl. I say all that to say it just showed a community coming together to support people. So I'd in the end, long story short, I'd like to think there's more positivity out there, but I don't know. Go ahead.
So for me, I was thinking about when Renee said this, and I responded to him. At first, I was like, "Nah, we horrible. Humans are garbage." And then I thought, I was like, I don't know, because at the end of the day, here's the conundrum of this show, and we as a society that I thought about. We went through the pandemic. There were people who did not handle it well, who did not do things that were conducive to their fellow man. I remember Katie was pregnant, and when we were still like, hey, stay away from people, do this, do that. I remember a story, and I don't remember where it was, where they were shooting people. They got in an argument over toilet paper at the grocery store, and someone got shot. And Katie was pregnant, and I was like, from now on, you don't do grocery shopping. I will do all the grocery shopping. You go to work, you come home. You don't, you're pregnant. I can't take that risk. I don't want you to take that risk. And it just really affected me. And then I thought about, Renee brought up this point. How would we have handled the cordyceps? And I thought about it. I was like, I want to say we probably in the beginning wouldn't have handled it well, because how many hoaxes did we have to deal with when it came to COVID? How many times did we, like, regardless of where it came from, I think we would still have those elements of people arguing over, like you said, the fear of other. You know, we went through this whole idea of where we, as a society, we did not do well in certain aspects when we talked to our fellow man, Asian Pacific Islanders. We had to literally tell people, hey, leave them alone. And I thought about it, and I was like,
go ahead. I'll add to your thing.
No, go ahead.
Well, it reminded me like when 9/11 first happened and everybody wanted to attack Muslims and stuff like that. It's like, whoa, easy, calm down.
Yeah, and so when Renee posed the question about, I would like you guys to do a discussion about whether or not you think Ellie was really the only one with immunity. I think the girl in episode 1 may have been immune, and fear of contagion was so great that the elimination was done too soon. I don't know how we would handle it, but I know based on how we handled the pandemic and COVID, we don't get an A, we don't get a passing grade. Even the way we handled the pandemic, based on different organizations who track these things, we did not do a good job. I don't know if that little girl was infected that would have caused her to mutate and turn into this thing.
We keep saying little girl. I thought it was a little boy.
Whatever the child was, I honestly don't know. I don't remember. I just remember when I saw that child walk up to Fedra, the quarantine zone. They brought the child in, and the first thing they did was doo-doo-doo, and that little thing was red. And next thing we know, we saw the child on the back of a truck, and they were hauling bodies off. And it was one of those things where you were like, "Oh, this is the kind of show you're watching," and it just really made me say. But then, the other part of me thought about it. Like I thought about that comment that Renee had all day today, and I was like, the show proved you never know what you would do given the loss in your life. But then in the last episode, when Joel said, when he told Ellie what happened to Sarah, and he's told her how he got the scar. And I thought about the fact that Joel was willing to risk it all for a little girl who was cargo he was being paid to carry from point A to point B. He did know her before a year ago. That wasn't his flesh and blood. And he was ready, whatever you think, he was ready to damn us. However you feel about whether or not the virus, we could have cured it with Ellie's sacrifice. He gave no fucks. And he went nuck if you buck. You all the acronyms, all the euphemisms, he went off.
Yeah.
And you got to meet that motherfucker named Joel. And I think that's and so it honestly gave me hope that if this is a man who had lost it all, who had done everything he could to survive, he was a murderer, he was a liar, he was a thief. Like everybody loves Joel. They're like, that Joel's a good. Joel will kill you if you got
what he needs. Yeah.
And I think the fact that he was willing to change. I think the fact, because you saw it when they got to Colorado, when they found his brother, and his brother was like, he was ashamed for the things he did, and Joel was like, "Man, I did that for you. I kept you alive." And then you think about the fact of Ellie needed that man, Joel, to get her to where she needed to be. That's who she needed, and I think about that when I say, did Joel make the right decision? And in my opinion, I'm no scientist, I'm no expert. I don't know what I would have done, but I do believe Joel made the right decision for him. And he made the decision I hoped I would have made.
I'm curious, and it's hard to tell to be in a multi-dimensional universe or whatever, right? Yeah. But when you played the game, you had not had kids at that point.
No. The
first game or whatever. And now the show's over, you have had kids, and I'm curious if your mindset would have changed between then and now.
I will say when the game came out and I played it, I did quibble with, did he make the right decision? And then I thought about it, I was like, the one thing I loved about the game and I loved about the show is the fact that they gave you so many different perspectives, but they also, neither one of them were right. At the end of the day, here's the one problem that both parties had, Joel and the Fireflies. They were making a choice for Ellie that was not her choice.
Sure.
Marlene was willing to cut that girl up and honestly, the show was worse than the game because now we know Marlene was there. She was best friends with her mom. She was there when she was born. She promised to protect her, and Marlene was ready to serve her up for science.
Mm-hmm.
And two, Joel was wrong when you think about agency and the choice because he didn't give her a choice. Neither one of those parties actually sat down with Ellie and said, "Hey, this is the situation. What do you want to do?"
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what she would have chose. But here's the thing: neither one of them gave them the choice. And when an immovable force comes up against another immovable force, something got to give. And
Yeah.
they found out this
Joel,
immovable force,
yeah, you're not beating Joel.
you've not beaten Joel. And
Yeah.
so that's the conundrum that we run across. Um, Personally, I think Joel was right. Personally, I think Joel was right. I think the fact that they were willing to do and IGN does a very good job of breaking down was Joel right, and the fact of the Fireflies, regardless of whatever they are terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
But one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So they believe that they were right, but how they went about it. Because here's the thing: you were willing to operate on Ellie. You weren't willing to study her. You weren't willing to take blood samples. You went straight from we got her, cut her open.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how science works. And which leads me to believe, and that's why I said, even thinking about it, hindsight being 2020, I still think Joel is right, given all of that information. IGN has a video that's called basically says, was Joel right? Well, kind of. But just from a human to human point, yeah, I'm like, cool. I'm down with Joel. I'm like, get your kill streak on.
Get your kill streak on. Fantastic.
Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
And this is why it's all about how you interact with someone, that first impression. And they didn't say, hey, don't move, put your weapons down. As soon as they saw Joel and Ellie, they flashbanged him and then hit him upside the head. You could have easily overpowered them without. And then when they got him in the room, what's the first, like, and this is what really gets me. This man made it all the way across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all still go fuck with him like that? You got what you deserved.
Well, I mean, yeah, but also to be fair, I mean, who knows if it had been different, if it was done differently in the game? Because I mean, at the same point, like that's your protagonist, so you can't just kill the protagonist like that.
No,
If
what I'm saying is, it is the game. I understand that, but I guess what I'm saying is the motivations is like for the Fireflies. As soon as Joel showed up, was to attack. As soon as Joel was looking for nuance, like hold on, you flashbang me, you hit me over the head, and now you want me, this girl that I had for 9 months, you just want me to just say, cool, she's cargo, cut her up. Like on a human to human standpoint,
mm-hmm.
like did they not get what they were like what they were asking of him? And that was the one thing that I was like, oh no, y'all are terrible people.
Sure,
The ends justify the means for you.
mm-hmm.
And that's when I was like, you know what, Joel, do go ahead and get that mushroom and that star. Go ham.
Okay, so that's what we think of the show. What do we think of the actors and the actresses in the show, or anybody standouts? You're like, man, this is good stuff.
Marlene was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I was very impressed with her, and well done for casting actors from the game into the show and
Mm-hmm.
filling different roles. Marlene was a very like Marlene was a great standout, and I'm Bella Ramsey did not recreate the Ellie from the game in the sense of she made Ellie her own character to where there were parallels. You know what character she was playing, but she made the character her own to where it was believable that this is a little girl who's a teenage girl who's trying to navigate the world. And bravo, Pedro Pascal. I mean, if I had my boys and I was like, hey man, I need you to take them. from point A to point B,
Mm-hmm.
I believe Pedro Pascal could do it.
He'd be like, "Sir, you realize I'm just an actor?" Nah, man, that was
sir,
real.
sir,
I saw what you did. That
I
was
saw
real.
what you did in Mandalorian. I saw what you did in The Last of Us.
Yeah,
Here's a shotgun. Here's a
yeah.
flashlight.
You
Some
make it
whips.
happen. Yeah. For me, I mean, Bella Ramsey was really just a standout for me. She carried so many episodes and so many scenes, and I really like the chemistry between her and Joel,
Mhm.
or her and Pedro Pascal, I should say. Um, I want to see. I think she was in like a coming of age comedy movie that came out within the last year or so,
Mhm.
and I can't remember what it's called, but I definitely want to see it now. Just like, oh, this girl's fun. I like her.
Okay.
She everything about her was good. Even though I think she is 19 or 20 in real life, she definitely came off as like a teenager and like
Mhm.
14, 15 years old, and they did a good job with that.
Yeah, I really, the standout for me in this in this show was the fact that they got down how teenagers work, in my opinion, how like they interact and some of those things. Like I'm not around a lot of Malite, but I know around them a lot. But Katie is from middle school and being a teacher, and she was like, oh, like certain interactions, I'd play a clip, and she's like, yeah, that's how they act, and she was like, that's pretty close to. And I thought the trauma that she experienced, Bella Ramsey experienced as Ellie, was genuine. Like you could tell she was definitely affected by episode 8 with the whole David situation.
Sure.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, it was hard for me buying David as the actor who played David because the way they made David in the game, like for those of us who are gamers, you see a character and you're like, oh, you're a bad guy.
Hmm.
Like you saw him, you knew. Like it's like certain actors. You know, if you see certain actors in a movie, wait a minute. Like the dude who played Jafar in the live action Aladdin, when we saw him in Shazam, I was like, oh, you're a bad guy.
Hmm.
Like you play bad guys.
Hmm.
Um, I saw that video game character and I was like, you're a bad guy. When I saw the actor who was supposed to play David, I was like, did they change David? Because he didn't look like a bad guy.
Hmm.
And then as you're watching the episodes, you're like, oh, you're worse than the bad guy. You're a cult leader.
Yeah.
So like, you're a cult leader, child grooming cannibal. And I was like, oh, you're the worst. You're like the combination of all the bad guys into one. And I thought that episode was powerful because there was not one mutated person in that episode.
Sure.
And he was the most despicable thing there was.
Yeah. When he talked about his love of the cordyceps, like, oh, the cordyceps figured it out. I was like, oh no,
And then not only
you've
that,
lost it.
and then Ellie knew. Here's the thing: when the adult is asking the child, "Join me, and we can rule the galaxy together,"
Hmm.
and she like he did his whole Vader pitch to her, and she was like, "Oh, you're one of those dudes."
Hmm.
That's when, like, that was when you were like, "Are we all just terrible? Like, is society terrible?" And then you realize, okay, no, we're not. It's just certain people in certain situations will do terrible things. And you
Hmm.
think about it, yes, is it wrong to let children starve and go hungry? No, but there's got to be a better way. And I really liked how you got to this point in this journey. And you're like, man, this was a really good show.
Hmm. So what are we envisioning for season 2? Without, I guess, really doing. And I don't even know how we talk about this without doing spoilers.
So this is, I'll say this. I won't spoil it, even though kind of spoiled a little bit earlier. They've already said that part 2 will be across multiple seasons.
They did say that.
Yeah, they've
Okay.
already said that part 2 will be told over multiple seasons. Now, how they break those seasons up,
Hmm.
because I think there are 3 distinct points that they can break it up. I'm not going to say what, because if those of you who haven't played or don't want to know, I'm not going to spoil what happens in the game. or what happened in the show. I'm not going to do that. But I think there are three distinct points where you could break up and do maybe a truncated season 2 and do like season 2, stop, and then restart season 2, kind of like what Stranger Things and what shows have been doing on Netflix.
Sure.
Do 6 episodes, take a break, do another 6. I think there's a lot of breaks that could happen. They said they're not recasting Bella Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
Pedro Pascal is down. We have seen snippets of certain characters. The voice actor who plays Abby in the game was one of the nurses in the last episode, and they said she was wearing a mask, so you could possibly see her later on. Dina, we saw a girl who looked like her in Colorado, so there's a possibility that we could see her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see how they handle the part 2 because there was so much controversy surrounding it.
Sure.
I had a hard time with the game. I had a hard time going back to the game after certain events. So that's why I brought up the whole idea of like people who didn't know it was a video game or never played a video game. It's going to be interesting seeing how they react to some of the parts in the show that are taken from the game.
And I wonder, because there was such a long gap between part 1 and part 2, I feel like people had more time to develop bonds with characters from the first one. So when certain things happen in the second one, they feel more attached to those people. So I wonder, like with the show, when those same things happen, are people going to be as attached because the bond didn't have as long to develop, if that makes sense?
I see. I'm going the other direction. I think they have a built-in not fail-safe, but a built-in. The show has something the game doesn't have or didn't have. The fact that it was a game before, and so a lot of these story beats are going to already be revealed and announced through people who have played the game. So going into the show, if you care to look, what happens. I'm not going to spoil it because I don't. There's maybe some people who want to go into this. Hey, what is part 2? I'll wait. I think that's going to help the show. That certain people are going to know certain things going into it. I think that's going to help. I do think they're going to have a whole new audience that's going to have to deal with loss and people and characters' motivations that they've never had to deal with before because it's a TV show. And we've seen how people react when a TV show doesn't do what people think it should do.
Sure.
Game of Thrones final season. People are still mad about that. I mean, people are still mad that they did not get deaths that they wanted, character development that they wanted, character motivation they feel that happened that was unnecessary. They are still mad about that.
Sure.
So this is probably one of the, game-wise, not game as far as like other things outside the game. This is still probably one of the most controversial games in recent memory.
Sure, I would agree with that.
Just based on how they decided to tell the story. Now, after finishing the game, I like that they did that. But it took a while for me to get to that point. And I think being a television show, it's going to be interesting to see how people get, how quickly, or if they get there, if they're okay with the motivations, only because with a TV show, it's a little easier because you're not playing that character. You're not doing those things.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's it. I don't got anything else to say on it. I think we kind of hit on the topics. Thank you, Renee, for asking us that question. you guys have other questions for us, you want us to answer, we will try to answer them
in the
future
comments.
videos in the comments below and whatnot. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe to know when we put up more videos. Follow us at the regular places for YouTube and Facebook. We trying y'all, Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. Nerdy by Nature Productions. Is that right? Did I get it right?
Yep, correct.
There we go. Nerdy by Nature Productions. Leroy's still playing Cyberpunk, right?
Yep. So I've been delaying finishing that game because
are you almost done?
Well, I'm at that point where it's like, hey, if you go past this point,
oh yeah, this is it.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, let me finish some of these side gigs because the side missions, oh my gosh, they're amazing. But I need to go ahead and finish it because Dead Space just went on sale for $50, and I had a $30 gift card.
Oh wow, okay.
So yeah, we could be playing Dead Space on Twitch.
Okay, there we go. That'll be the next game Leroy plays. Until then, we out. Peace.
Deuces.